Hello, bonjour, Ani, hola. I'm Mark Laporte. I'm the Tourism Sponsorship Marketing Lead and one of the digital technicians this year for Fringe North. Ani, hola. I'm Mark Laporte. I'm the Tourism Sponsorship Marketing Lead and one of the digital. I'm thrilled to be here this evening live with our roundtable. We'll be hosting every Thursday leading up to the festival starting on August 21st. Don't forget to join us each week as we engage in a chat and share thoughts and discuss all things Fringe North. Each session will feature special guests from our incredible community of performers and creators, offering an inside glimpse into their artistic journeys, festival contributions, and this week our special is Multimedia and Digital Artist Edition. I'm excited to welcome Kim Kitchen and Nancy Edwards.
Thank you.
Let's start off by just giving a little introduction of yourself and what you're bringing to the festival this year. And don't give too much information because we'll get into that a little bit later, but let's start with Kim.
Well, thank you for having me, and lovely to meet you both tonight. I am bringing a film, spoken word soundscape, titled To Reconvene to Shoreline, a 3-year project that I completed in 2023. And so, yeah, that will be at the Fringe.
And very happy to meet both of you as well. I'm Nancy Edwards, and I'm based in Ottawa and a professor emeritus at the University of Ottawa. I call myself a recovering academic writer because I've, for years, written technical documents and manuscripts for publication in scientific journals. But in my retirement, decided to take on first writing a memoir about my experiences in West Africa. And then from that, I've written a play, which is a solo play. I'm the performer, and it's called Rethinking Good Intentions.
Nice. The question for Kim, how did your personal journey shape and your approach to exploring what you're bringing to the festival this year and into that natural world?
Well, this is such a complex question you have for me. I mean, I just in the sense that, I was able-bodied. I became disabled with chronic illness that came on really severe rheumatoid. And so now I'm in this new time of navigating the landscape in a very different way, as well as everything else in my life, including my practice. So, it has taken a great deal of time and huge learning curve, as Nancy said, right? Like, it's just so much. But good, like it feels good, to be adaptable and open for finding new ways of working in the world, being in the world. So that greatly affected my practice as of 10 years ago. And I really didn't get back to my art practice for a good 4 years after RA came to me. And I stepped in. I mean, I've always been multidisciplinary, but, it really, it came to me to work with audio. It was something I could do in bed. It was just really all about capturing during those times. And then, of course, when I received treatment that got me mobile again, I entered into working with audio. And film is the same. They're just these gentle ways I can work that really, my capacity can work with. However, I no longer work as a solo artist. I work with a team. So I hire technicians and artists, including personal support workers, to be with me, when I'm creating. And that has always been a part of my work. Before I became disabled, I was always exploring the worlds of interdependence. You know, my love for fungi, my love for living in the bush and on the land. So those things, all about interdependence. And now I feel like as a disabled artist, that is exactly what I'm doing, you know. I rely on those around me to collaborate, to understand my vision, and then carry it through with me. Yes, big changes.
So in what ways has your mobility offered you preparation into like the familiar spaces, and how has that influenced your artistic practices?
Well, my work throughout my life has always been inspired by the landscape, the earth, and her beings, right? So not being able to be out in the bush anymore and to just set out and explore areas that are now, you know, barrier only, right? So I've really had to navigate in finding other ways of how I do that. But I, you know, I have an electric wheelchair. I have a manual wheelchair. My research grant I received in 2019 from Canada Council, 2019, was research. It was about renting a motorhome, seeing if I could travel that way, because I can't sit in a car, or I can't be seated for hours, or I can't walk on the other end, you know? So I did like it just was everything. It was like from basic function, you know, and then could I sustain in a provincial park? Like, was it accessible enough? And then with, you know, managing all those things, could I capture? Did I feel creative and inspired and comfortable enough? And did I have energy? You know, all those things. And so that research grant, when I came back, was yes, you know, we went and found a used vintage motorhome to buy, and you know, because it was just so incredible. Like it all worked. It was wonderful having all the comforts of your home, and then I had to, you know, really give lots of thought to how I was going to work with a team. And then I had to try that. That was the project that kind of came after. You know, I stepped right into having like a team of 10. Yeah. I can't hear you now.
See that Rebecca has joined us. She's in here as well. But just
Yes, I'm here. Sorry,
awesome.
I'm on a very old computer because my laptop died this year and I can't fix it. So Zoom takes all the bandwidth and makes my computer freeze. So hence why there's no video.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, no, if you can just give us a little explanation onto what you're bringing to Fringe North this year, and then
Sure. My project is called Becca and Nico. It's a 2D animated project for children ages 5 to 8. It is basically kind of inspired by my journey to the zoo, with some added narrative fiction. It's about a little girl and her dog who travel from Vancouver to the zoo to visit their cousin, and along the way they learn a little bit about some of the birds that live in the area, and then they have sushi after.
very interesting. So what brought you to explore some 2D animation?
I had been working as a general manager and line producer in Toronto for an animation studio for 5 years, working with Inuit groups to help them preserve their language and culture. into animation projects for kids. And so I learned about animation and pipeline and all these things working there. And I since had left and during COVID, and I now am based in the Sioux and have started my own animation projects and things like that.
That's exciting, Rebecca.
Very interesting.
Thanks.
So just a question for Nancy. What inspired you to transition kind of from the academic writing into filmmaking and storytelling? And how did that background of community health nursing influence that shift?
Well, I have always thought I might write something more about my experiences in Sierra Leone, West Africa. I lived there for 5 years when I was much younger, and worked in the rural areas, and it really was a life changer for me. I wrote a number of stories for my family about 15 years ago, just short stories. I gave them as gifts to them, actually, because they kept telling me that I hadn't disclosed much in my letters, and I have all the letters I wrote home, and they're absolutely right. I disclosed very little about what was really happening, and it just got harder and harder to explain the experiences in a very different part of the world. So I didn't disclose more as I lived there longer. I disclosed less as I lived there longer. So that was a start, and then the COVID probably helped because it was a good project to do during COVID. This is when I wrote my memoir. Uh, and I just had so much inspiration from the people who I worked with many years ago. I had a lot of journals and many, many photographs I've taken. I've always enjoyed photography. I've always enjoyed music. And the memoir got published in 2022. And then I thought, well, maybe I can turn this into a play and take a portion of the memoir, particularly that which focuses on Sierra Leone, and try out theater. I had said long before I retired that I would like to write a musical one day, but it's clear that I don't have enough musical talent actually to write a musical, although I enjoy music a lot and I play piano. But I thought this might be within my bailiwick. And then it just kind of took off because I really did most of the writing starting in November. I didn't even think about applying to Fringe festivals until January, and applied to 5 and got into all of them. So then I had to make a decision about would I go virtual as well as in person, and actually 3 are in person and 2 are virtual, including Fringe North. And they're sort of playing off each other right now because as I'm learning more about, how better to stage it, I am the actor in person, that's informing my thinking about the virtual. And then on the virtual side, I've been able to get assistance from the Canadian Playwrights Guild with some people who actually do a lot of work in helping people convert to digital theater. I've been learning open broadcasting software because it allows me to incorporate music and photographs and sounds, landscape and so on into the play. So that's also influencing how I think about the in-person. So I just feel like I'm on this huge learning trajectory as I figure this out. But going back to Sierra Leone for a moment, one of the things that I did there, and actually one of the scenes in my play is about this, was oral storytelling and drama. And we found that that was a really, really good way to share knowledge and to get villagers and so on thinking about perhaps new ways of addressing old problems. So that really sparked something in me at the time, and I've had a long-standing interest in popular theater. So I guess this is my own attempt, I suppose, at popular theater.
That's fabulous, Nancy.
Thank you.
Wow. Can't wait to see your work.
So a question for everyone. Is this everyone's first festival, or have you introduced?
First for me.
I had another short film, I believe it was 2 years ago, had it in the Fringe North.
This is my second Fringe. I had an animated project for toddlers last year called Chickaduck.
Sounds like I'm sitting here with some very experienced pros. I feel like the amateur.
Oh, I wouldn't say that about me.
I think that's the beauty of Fringe, Nancy, is that all kinds of people come together
Yes.
to make great art and share it.
Mm.
And I've certainly seen some very inspiring Fringe performances over the years. And some of the ones that have been multimedia I found to be most intriguing.
Yeah, so just kind of expanding off of that, why did you guys choose to go through the sort of that fringe market versus other areas of artist realms? Starting with Kim.
Well, I am submitting internationally to all kinds of things. But, Northern Ontario for me, I always love and appreciate the opportunity, to share in my communities. Yeah.
Rebecca?
My project is the same. It's already in film festival circuits as well. In fact, it won Best Animated Short Film in India at the Golden Lion International Film Festival. So Fringe North is part of its circuit. Specifically, I always want to, showcase work made in Northern Ontario to Northern Ontarians, kind of helping to create hopefully more awareness about the different types of projects that people make here, or the different kind of access that people can make here. Yeah.
And for me, I've been performing it locally for some different audiences, in part a few performances that were really to workshop it and to get a lot of input that have helped me to refine it and develop it further. And I guess trying out different audiences with it. So just one example, I performed it for a long-term care facility a couple of weeks ago, where it was very well received. And although probably some of the residents of the long-term care didn't get it, their caregivers were there and they really got it. So there's that. I've done bits and pieces of it for storytelling groups. What I would like to do after the Fringe Festival performances this summer is to perform it virtually and or in person for those who are interested in global health work in universities and colleges, and maybe thinking about doing volunteer work or getting involved in that area of work over time. So I'm just starting to explore that now. I think it opens up a lot of questions for discussion about, even a decision to work overseas, and there is potential to do harm as well as to do good. Cultural adaptation, the adaptation when you actually come home. And I felt it was very relevant for Fringe North, and I had to explain this as part of the application, because I've worked in very northern and rural areas of Canada myself. I've done a little bit of work in the Sioux Lookout Zone many years ago. I've worked in the outports of northern Newfoundland as a public health nurse. And while there are many differences, of course, between my experiences in Sierra Leone and those northern communities, there's also commonalities of community connectedness, commonalities of really learning about yourself, of cultural adaptation, of being introduced to new ways of knowing, of oral traditions. And so I thought some of the experiences that I relay in this play had relevance to Fringe North audience.
So what inspired you to really like go that storytelling route versus you know writing a book or other avenues of art that are out there?
Is that question for me or somebody else?
Sorry, it can be for anyone, but
Well, I'll just say a few words, but I did write the book first, as I mentioned right at the beginning. But the book is filled with stories. And then I realized in doing some presentations and being asked to talk about my book that I could use a little bit more background and expertise in how to tell really good sort of standalone stories. I mean, I think there's lots of good ones in here, but when you're telling them orally, it's different. And so I joined several storytelling groups. I took a storytelling course and so on, which helped me. And I think that became a jumping off point then for, well, maybe there's another artistic format that I can think about for this that would be maybe even more powerful than a book. And it's hard to get people to read a book that's several hundred pages long. It's easier to ask people to commit to watching a play for an hour.
So Nancy, I want to know where do I get your book?
Oh, you can get it on Amazon, but it's also available from Friesen Press, and it's got a different title than the play. The name of the book is Not One, Not Even One, a memoir of life-altering experiences in Sierra Leone, West Africa.
Thank you.
And the poem at the very beginning of the book explains where the title came from.
Thanks so much.
Yeah. So Kim, what inspired you to go into the kind of the storytelling route of your journey?
Well, I think I've always been storytelling. And like Nancy, I have lived, in various cultures, in various parts of Canada and the Northwest Territories. I've spent time in Tanzania and Ethiopia and the Bahamas. And storytelling just is such a powerful thing for many, many people, right? And also, I mean, all different kinds of mediums of art. I mean, I was running programming inside federal prisons, and again, bringing markers and crayons and pencil crayons to the table, and and asking the 20 people sitting around where I was running this workshop, to express a memory, their earliest memory of violence. And, unbelievable what people draw and clearly articulate in that way, right? So that happened for me. I worked for 26 years in sexual violence and domestic violence in this country. That just became part of making art for me. And not only, for me to express that art, but there's always these pieces that I add to the installation, to the exhibition, where I'm requesting participation in some way that, feels safe, that is honoring. And so that's always a part, like that outreach that I did for so many years continues with me as an artist. Mm-hmm.
Well, that's a fascinating background, Kim. So many different experiences that you bring to your current projects.
Yeah, the making, you're right. It just so informs, I mean, it's within me. It's not like it's not like outside informing me. It's totally feels within me.
Mm,
And like you, the spending of time in places of, just a whole new world, really.
mhm.
It is profound in how it affects us, changes us, grows us, develops us. Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You get to know yourself in whole new ways, right?
Mhm. The more I know, the less I know.
Yes. That sounds like wisdom.
Yeah, right. Like, what do I know? Not
Yeah,
much.
not quite where we thought we'd end up, right? But
Mhm.
So we do actually have a question from the YouTube audience. For everyone, what element of your submission are you most passionate about, and what are you hoping that people will take away when seeing your submission? Let's start off with Rebecca on that one.
That's excellent.
I think with my project, because it's geared towards kids and it's about curiosity and where you are in your place. I'm hoping that kids will be inspired to maybe learn more about birds and learn more about their surrounding environment. In my short, we also highlight the pictographs, which are not far from the zoo, and are a very important piece to this area where we live. Um, and I wanted to highlight sort of the specialness of the zoo and what the zoo has to offer.
nice. I want my 4-year-old grandson to watch this.
Thanks.
I would say for me, this work, the film is part of an installation, and the film is only going to be what is seen at Fringe North, but the other pieces are photography and mixed media, as well as the audio is 6-channel, which won't be possible when it's being shared virtually. And all of those pieces for me are about the storytelling, engaging people in whatever ways, in kind of those various ways where they feel comfortable, where they can listen. But this work does feel like my legacy work.
Mm,
And I, of course, I wasn't aware of that going into it, but I definitely was aware of it when I completed it.
mm.
So that feels pretty good, like really good, like great. Yeah.
And do you think you would have approached it the same way if you had gone into it planning it as your legacy project?
I don't know. I mean, I always trust the unfolding.
Mm,
I'm just a great, like I don't need to see it all beforehand. It unfolds, and it becomes really at times what it becomes,
mhm,
you know. I do know that the opportunities that I've had throughout my life, and the most recent of becoming disabled, and I say that because I really think we have to bring honor back to that word and respect, because our culture is so anti disabled and chronically like sickness. You haven't done the right things, you haven't seen the right person, you haven't, it's all about pushing it all away. And so that awareness for me, which now is my advocacy, of course, yeah, I really wanted to be out about that in my work, that my support people are visible, helping me, supporting me, assisting me. I just think it's so time that we see how, people navigate through that and continue on. And it's just a wonderful thing, but it's about giving consideration to all of that.
Mm.
And it becomes as valued as the story. It is the story,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's not separate.
Yeah. No,
Mhm.
that's an amazing journey, and so important to get that out there and to get people thinking about that, given our
Yeah,
social views and the stigma and so on associated with many disabilities and people who
exactly.
live with chronic disease. It's
Yeah,
really important. I can
yeah,
really relate to what you're saying about a legacy, because I didn't start off with this being a legacy project at all. I just felt I wanted to get some of these stories out there. But I think for me too, it sort of turned into a bit of a legacy project, and maybe more just the reflective process one goes through as you, as I often call it, peeling the onion, and you're, deciding how much about yourself and your personal stories you're willing to disclose. And I'm somebody who tends to not disclose much, as I told you, was my letters home. But the onion, you kept getting down through layers and layers of it, and finding comfort as you reconciled yourself with some of the events of my life. Uh, in being more comfortable disclosing, and you realize you sort of open one door here for the reader or the audience, and you've invited people into that room, and so you have to tell them a bit about what's in that room, even though maybe you didn't intend to open that door, but it's too late. You opened that door. But I would say, in answer to your question, Mark, that I think the element I'm most passionate about is the stories I tell about the traditional birth attendants who, in our area, attended 90% of the deliveries in the villages in the area where I worked, despite the fact that there was a 124-bed hospital, which is where I was based, but I was working in public health. And I think the takeaway that I hope for is just people really feeling and experiencing our common humanity, and not seeing this as, those people over there, and the othering that we all do from time to time. How to bring them in. So the compliments, what is most complimentary to me when people have read the play, and this is novel for me as an academic writer who, wrote objectively about science and all that stuff for most of their career. The complimentary stuff for me is when people say, you brought me with you to the people and the village, or when they cry, and they do, and they laugh at some of the incidents, and then you just, it's what drama can do, right? It's a way of connecting, and it's what oral storytelling can do and intends to do, to make people feel and sense, think for themselves about what they might have done. And I put some provocative questions to the audience as part of the play to get people thinking. You're muted, Mark.
Yeah, we had another question in the chat as well, and this, so how do you build trust in your team to know that your vision will be what you intended it to be?
Mm.
Nancy, do you want to start that one off?
Yeah, well, I think quite differently to what Kim described and what I imagine is the case for Rebecca. I wasn't really working with a multidisciplinary team per se, but I did join several writing groups. I set up a memoir writing group. And so I was sharing much of the writing experience and what I was writing, including the play at the time. And I guess trust grew out of getting constructive feedback and other ideas that I thought, oh, I hadn't thought about that, but of course that makes sense. I mean, even in the early days of writing the memoir, it's a big shift from academic writing, and my writing group would say to me, "So great story, but where are you in it?" Oh yeah, I'm writing a memoir. I guess I should make an appearance, right? So I guess the trust came out of constructive feedback, and I sure needed a lot of it as I went on this journey.
I can go next because I think I'm more complicated. I did have a team because you can't make an animation alone. You can, but it's highly not just not something I do. I can only draw stickmen, so I I worked with an artist who I had worked with previously on another animation project. She actually lives in Thunder Bay, and we worked very closely on reviewing every part of the project. We had from concept art to design to rigging to storyboarding to scene setups, all the way through. We reviewed everything together. I wrote the script that everything is based on. I gave her reference materials of color and things like that. And then once sort of the animation was done, I worked on sound design with other folks so that we could build the sort of world because sound is such an important part of any either live action or animation, especially animation though, to kind of create the world and bring it to life. I also had worked with Northern Ontario actors to voice the characters, and uh, I had some casting issues with trying to get ethnicity right because not everybody is always the same ethnicity up here. So the project in scope for 5 minutes of animation took us probably about 6 to 8 months total to complete, um, because of pace and just because of all the work that's needed to get done. Um, and I'm so grateful of how it turned out, and I really couldn't have done it without my team.
Yeah, that's how I feel too, Rebecca. Just so grateful for my team. I think one of the things for me in this kind of transition of solo artist to then working with numerous folks, first I have to be able to articulate what my needs are. I've really had to learn that. Whether it's important they know about my fatigue, about how my mobility can change in an hour, how I can hit the wall and I have to get horizontal for several hours and I have limited time and energy, right? So this is the other thing we're really told, you don't really talk about your sickness, and you just kind of keep going and you don't give it any attention. And really that is just really, in my opinion, so wrong. If I don't embrace and understand the changes in my body and how I can best manage that to live my potential, I certainly cannot inform those working with me and collaborating, right? Who need to know so that they can learn best practice in serving this project or serving me as a colleague, right? So the great thing about all of that is there's this great exchange going on, of shared experience and building knowledge. And and compassion and consideration. So that piece, yeah, it's been really positive and so wonderful. And I have a great community of artists all around me here in North Bay. Just getting ready to put another team together for an upcoming project. So it's exciting, you know, as well as I've become very attentive to creating work that is inclusive. You know, it's we just so have to do better at all of that. And so I'm always asking the question, how do I do better as an artist? And how do we do better as art organizations and galleries and those spaces, right?
Yeah, it's really interesting to hear both of your experiences because in my professional life as a community health nurse, I worked with interprofessional teams all the time. I mean, you just can't tackle any substantial public health issues unless you do that. But in my writing and so on, it's been very different. I sort of had to build, I suppose, an informal group of colleagues and mentors and so on around me to help me learn the craft as I go. But I think around the trust question you asked, Mark, I mean, sometimes it's making sure that I have people to reach out to when I don't trust myself. So, issues of things like cultural appropriation. I've just been having this discussion actually over the last few days because I have music that I taped of the Mende people. That's the tribe that I worked with in Sierra Leone 40 years ago, and I taped it, so there isn't a formal issue around copyright and royalties and all that. But is it right to actually share that music when it's not music of my culture, it's music of the Mende people? And how do I give credit to those who were singing and so on? I don't have any of their names. In fact, one of them is a tape I did at a Christmas mass. So it's the parishioners were coming in and singing, and you can hear the percussionists. So there's trust issues I found that have come up in myself, where I need to make sure that I'm reaching out as opposed to trust of those who might be directing your work and so on, where they might be shifting and changing, what you had intended to show on stage or in a virtual production.
So, Nancy, what are some of the biggest challenges you've faced as a filmmaker?
Well, it's interesting you call me a filmmaker because I don't think of it that way. I think of myself as a virtual theater something or other. I don't want to put producer, director, or any of that on it because I don't think I'm of that ilk yet, to be perfectly honest. I would say, some of the biggest challenges are some of them are just pragmatic, like learning open broadcasting software in 4 weeks so that I can actually use that. My original plan was I was just going to do my performance by Zoom, which I have done a number of times for people. But there's so much more you can do with the addition of music and the sounds of the African night and the water lapping in the ocean and all of that sort of thing, and photos that I took that I can bring to the production when I use the software. So some of it has just been it's like these new worlds have opened up for me that I knew almost nothing about before I got started, and trying to learn them fast enough that I can do something that's a quality presentation or a quality performance, and learning how to act. I've never really acted in my life other than simple charades with family, so that's been a learning curve. And I've worked with somebody here who is a stage director, and she's helped. But yeah, it's all big learning.
It's like wonderful, really. It's so like amazing, to think, I mean, it's so off track of, the first part of your life, right? It's like you just jumped onto a whole other carousel.
Yes, and
Right.
it's moving so darn
Yeah.
fast.
Right.
I'm
So
a bit
great.
dizzy.
So great. And you know,
Thank
that you worked in this, you know, very collaborative, fast-paced, relying on so many others, right?
That's right.
And engaged in such ways. And now you stepped into this solitary kind of exploration.
Mhm.
Bravo. Bravo.
But
That's
also
really-
realizing it doesn't need to be nearly as solitary as it felt like when I was
No,
sitting at my
exactly.
desk during COVID, right? And trying to figure out what words to put on a page on my computer screen in front of me. So that's been great fun, right? And
Yeah.
developing networks and just learning a whole lot more about people who do this so well and
Mhm.
learning from them.
And, you know, I just wanted to say when you talked about, you know, you had never acted. I was thinking about how, you know, healthcare professionals are really are performing all the time.
I suppose.
You know, I mean, you could call so many instances performance pieces where you're just like being so strong and so determined and so committed and, you know, and not letting your patient see any of the other side.
Yeah, that's true.
It's
And
like,
teaching is largely a
and
performance art too, right? But
exactly.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you've been auditioning for this your whole life.
Oh, well done, Rebecca. That's so
Thank you.
great.
You're both very good at building my confidence.
You know, the other thing I want to say, because I did hear you say this and it felt very like, you know, it felt very patriarchal, is that you are a director. You are a producer. These things are what you do, not who you are.
Mm, mm.
You are producing, you know?
Thank
It's
you.
just so important to value and not minimize that, you know, that we have to become whatever to then take on that title. No, it's an act.
I think
Really.
you're so right, Kim, because imposter syndrome I think runs so deep,
Yes.
especially as women, uh,
Yes.
and
Yes.
especially as first timers.
First timers, newbies.
Very true, Rebecca. Good point.
Mhm.
Anyhow, Mark, you'll have to be doing some post-fringe, YouTube videos and see where we stand on some of our opinions after the fringe.
Yeah, that would be really great. That's a good point. Mark, how long is this? I didn't ask that when we started.
Actually, about 40 minutes long. But we did have another question in the chat, and it was, what has been the favorite sound that you've used in your project? And let's cut off here for me. And why did it add to the moment that you used it in your film?
Mm. Well, this is such an opportunity to answer this question. Many, many years ago, when I was living further north in Elliott Lake, traveled a lot to the Sioux, up to Superior. I was gathering at that point with women all over the planet. And we were really doing, you know, that reclaiming work of locating our worth once again. And through that, you know, through lineage and our history, I was teaching lots of old traditional songs that I'd been gifted as I traveled about the world. And, you know, it's more of chanting. It's not, you know, it's not really songs, it's chanting. And the idea that, you know, if you have 20 people in a room, you teach that chant and then you do these layers and layers. It's really such a great memory. Like it comes as a memory. because we've heard that all throughout our life. So it's very nurturing, and it helps us to attach all those pieces that have been let go, right? And so I met so many incredible women, and one of my dear sisters in Spanish, great voice, and her and I, we chanted so much together. And as I've, became ill, my voice was, very, very weakened, and it changes, and I just not possible to do that anymore. She'd always say, Kim, we talked about recording. When are we going to do this? I said, I'm going to get a grant. And this is like 25 years later. And so 3 years ago, we came together, and I had the recording studio here, and my technicians and Kathy Robita and I created and chanted together, which is on the film that you all see, Fringe North to Reconvene the Shoreline. So it's really, and then she died. She died last year, an unexpected, due to a surgery, she died. And she'd just come to the opening and the reception, and it's those moments where you're just so grateful. I'm so, so grateful that I followed through with that both of us did, and that we got to do that, and I get to hear her,
Oh,
yeah,
that's amazing. Wow.
really powerful, so powerful.
Yeah, the moment is now, eh?
That's
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah.
And I think my answer would be a little bit similar. I mean, the Mende music I mentioned a moment ago about the parishioners in the church. The Mende music is quite distinctive. I mean, the percussion could be, although there's a particular instrument called a shake, which is very distinctive, but it is unlike anything you hear in your typical African film and so on. There's no lions, there's none of that, and it takes me right back to sitting in that church. It gives me goosebumps every time I listen to it. Yeah, so I hope it will do the same for the audience.
I mean, mine, as mentioned earlier, is animated. I think the hardest piece of audio to find was our snowy owl noise. Just because there aren't that many libraries out there that have such a sound, and it's such a specific bird sound. So that I think that rings the most for the film for me when I think about the audio time that we've had together. I mean, our score was done by a lovely fellow named Deep Sea. It's very, very cutesy, and quite fitting. But the snowy owl just like is the thing in my mind, and I'm like, I wish we could just like go out and film these beautiful birds and capture more audio for them, because there is such a small library out there.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Yeah. So is there anything else that any of you want the audience is coming up in August to know about your film before we head out here?
No, this has been just a really great conversation. Nancy and Rebecca, like just wonderful. Look forward to seeing your work. And to the audience, would love to hear if you attend and see my work. I would love for you to visit kimkitcheninthestudio.com and send me a message.
Yeah, ditto. A delight to meet you, Kim and Rebecca, and hopefully we can meet in person sometime. And Mark, thanks for your questions, which were quite thought-provoking. And for the audience as well, I have a website, www.nancyedwards.ca. So would love to get feedback if you do watch the performance of the play, and I'm open to doing it elsewhere and getting it out there. So thanks for joining us tonight.
I will echo that as well. And yes, thank you, Mark, for all the questions, and the YouTubers for questions as well. You can find myself at my website, rustyhaloproductions.com. And I think the main thing is, yeah, just letting us all know how we do, how you like it, and you know, that one comment back, or that, you know, from a viewer, always kind of sparks another potential project in us. So yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, and just to kind of echo everyone thing that you guys said there, we do have feedback forms for people watching and the artists as well. So and then we make sure that everyone does get a copy of that after all the performances. So make sure that you guys get that, because every from what I've read so far, all your performances seem like, you know, really kind of unique and definitely inspiring in different ways. So I'm curious to be able to watch those. And so I just wanted to thank everyone for joining us tonight. Merci, Mekwedge, and gracias. Just a quick reminder that Fringe North is happening from August 21st to 25th. And for more information, you can visit our website and follow us on social media. All the links are in the description below. And if you'd like to support our work and help foster emerging artists or northern artists, please consider tipping the Fringe. Every dollar makes a difference, and you can find the donation link in the description below, or at saultfringe.com. That's SAULT fringe.com. And we'll be back next Thursday evening with another live stream. But we'll be live from the Sioux Museum for our summer solstice social. And they'll be celebrating the longest day of the year with live music, delicious food, crafts, and a community mural. You can come meet the Fringe North artists and staff live at the event, or tune in on our YouTube or Facebook page. Admission is pay what you can, so come support the Fringe Festival and don't miss another great opportunity to see what's
Thank you,
going
Mark.
on here at the Fringe.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Mark.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks very much, Mark.